So there's this one-eyed sailor apparently loitering outside of some wedding chapel, harassing the guests and whatever, who are just trying to enjoy the wedding, and he manages to grab one of them by the arm, and he's like, there was a ship, but the guest is like having none of it, and he's like, back the heck off, you loon, and the sailor lets go. But see now, the guest is all curious, like, man, I wonder what happened on that ship. So he pops a squat right on a rock somewhere off to the side, and now the sailor's really satisfied, and he starts telling his story. So the sailor begins the story, and he's like, everyone was pretty happy, and his crew was really lit for this voyage, and he describes the sun and talks about how long the days were, or whatever. And then the wedding guest is like, oh man, this was a mistake. And then he hears the music, and the bride is already walking down the aisle, and he's like, hey man, I gotta get back to this wedding. But the sailor was like, there was a storm, and the guy is like, well, figured it'd be rude to leave now. And the sailor continued, and it got like really stormy and dark, and it got cold, and the ocean they were crossing froze over, and they didn't know what the heck they were gonna do. And this big old albatross bird came in, and he was like so big that the wind it made with his wings helped the boat set sail again, and it broke the ice and everything. But then everything went back to normal, and the albatross was just being a plain old mooch, apparently, well, according to the sailor. So then the sailor did what he figured any sensible mariner would do, and he shot it down. Then the sailor talks about, watching it fall into the sea or stuff, and so it was kind of a bummer, and then sailing got really boring, apparently, because the albatross was playing with him or something, and then he really regretted killing the bird, and then it turns out that the albatross was the only thing keeping the wind blowing, so he kind of doomed them all, so they were out at sea for a super long time, and he felt really bad the entire time for killing that dang bird. And then practically all hell broke loose, and like the gods or whatever came down on them, practically killed his entire crew. And then the sailor like looked at the guests, and he was like, oh man, don't worry, I didn't die, because I'm the butt that shot the bird. And he had to repent for his terrible sin. So he had to sail with his dead crew for like a week, and it was like so gross. But then he was like finally forgiven or something, and like the guilt he felt for the albatross was finally like lifted off his shoulders, and he was about to set sail once again. Then his whole crew became zombies. Like, I guess they got up, but they didn't actually have a soul, but they were just like helping him sail. And so then the guests got freaked out again, so the sailor was all like, don't worry, they weren't zombies forever, it was just like a temporary thing. Then the gods that killed everyone, I guess, appeared in the sailor's dream, and they were like, hey, that dude killed the bird, right? And the other god was like, yep. And then the god was like, well, why are we helping him if he killed the bird? And then his friend was like, well, we forgave him. And so the other god was like, okay. And so then the sailor finally found a harbor, but I guess he couldn't do anything about it because he crashed the freaking boat. And then the guys that saved the sailor was like, dude, what the heck happened out there? And the sailor had to retell his entire tale to everyone who asked. Then the guest was all depressed and then sad, and he missed the wedding too, so it was all kind of sucked for everybody that day. And the end.